Hi everyone, my name is Ron S. Friedman. I'm an IT professional and a science fiction writer. Welcome to Sci and Sci-Fi, connecting the public to science and technology through storytelling. Since we are only 2 days away from the US presidential elections, we are going to deviate a little bit from our regular material and speak a little about politics. This could be a scary experience. We will review how past administrations influenced the space program, and if you stick all the way to the end, I'll try to predict how the space program may look like after the coming elections. But before we proceed, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. That will really help the YouTube algorithm to help others find my channel, thus enable me to produce more content. You may also want to consider checking some of my books, links will be added below. Now, let's dive right into politics and the space program. Let's go back to 1962. September 12, 1962. Back then, the US was in a Cold War in conflict with the Soviet Union. The US was already behind in the space race. The Sputnik was launched by the USSR before the US launched the first satellite. Yuri Gagarin, the first cosmonaut, went to space. It was launched by the USSR before the US. And the United States was behind the Soviet Union. So John F. Kennedy decided to give a goal, commit his nation, the United States, to land humans safely on the moon before 1970 and return them safely to Earth. This was something really unheard of. This was a commitment, very specific commitment that will require a lot of effort and a lot of resources and was difficult to achieve and do that within a time limit. It was quite a commitment. Soon after, a year later, John F. Kennedy was murdered, and the administration that came after him decided to continue with his legacy. They continued with the project, funded the Apollo program, the moon landing program, and part of it was, of course, the space race. They want to show that they are able to defeat the Soviet Union. But then on September 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the Sea of Tranquility, changing history forever. This was probably one of the most important historical events of the 20th century. The first time a human landed on another celestial body on the solar system that wasn't Earth. And that inspire people and inspire science fiction in a way that unheard of. Already before the first moon landing, we already had the TV shows about a rotating space station in space with artificial gravity. This is a scene from Space Odyssey in 2001. Arthur C. Clarke and the movie producers believed that by 2001, we will have space station like this. We will have spaceships going to Jupiter. We will have a moon base. This is from Space 1999, Moonbase Alpha. It's a British TV series. A lot of optimism on Earth. And then the Vietnam War, different issue, public lost some interest, and Nixon decided to cancel the moon program and the Saturn V program. The Saturn V is the massive rocket that was enabled the moon landing. Instead, if you could, the NASA decided to invest money. By then, the budget went down in a space shuttle that was supposed to be a reusable spacecraft. It was reusable, but after you had all the maintenance and the operational cost, it cost more or less about the same price as the Saturn V. That means, although it was reusable, launching the space shuttle, each launch cost about the same as launching the Saturn V. The only difference was that the space shuttle can only go to orbit. It couldn't go anywhere else other than Earth orbit. And it could only lift 27 tons to low Earth orbit, opposed to the Saturn V that could lift 140 tons to low Earth orbit, which was about 5 times more than the space shuttle for the same cost. So this is how NASA budget looked like. You can see during the moon program, it was extremely high. It reached nearly 5% of the US budget went to the space program. But already before the actual land, the budget started to shrink. And after the program was canceled in 1971, the NASA budget went to more than 4% of the budget to less than 1% of the budget. That was pretty devastating. And also, that was the beginning of the space stagnation. We enter a 50 years of stagnation. Now, I'm not saying the space program was completely dead. The non-human space flight was really some very interesting program, like the Voyager that went throughout the solar system and took pictures of Saturn, Jupiter, and the other gas giants. Pioneer did something similar. We had the Mars rover, we had test space telescope like the Hubble, New Horizon that went to Pluto, Cassini that landed on Titan and took a lot of pictures of Saturn system. So there were a lot of exciting things happening in space in the low budget that NASA had to, but humanity was stuck to low Earth orbit, and also the total capacity of humans to launch payload into space was something like 500 tons per year, not more than that. Maybe we could potentially do 1,000 if we try very, very hard. And the price was about $10,000, if not more, per kilogram in low Earth orbit. So it was very expensive, very low limit, and humans were stuck in low Earth orbit. That was, of course, reflected in science fiction. Silent Green, 1973, dystopian. Capricorn 1, 1977, talk about a fake Mars landing. It was not a happy time for human space flight. So let's move a little bit forward to the Clinton administration, 1992 to 2000. Back then, NASA space program was still going well in the robotic mission and the non-human missions, but there was nearly no human space program. Like the space shuttle was still a gram, but it has no goal and no purpose. NASA was still on survival mode, so the NASA proposed to start the International Space Station. It was an international cooperation between NASA and other space agencies to build a space station that was compiled very, very fast. The program, the plans were very fast, just to make sure the shuttle will continue and there will be some presence of humans in Earth. Of course, it was limited to space orbit, to Earth orbit, and we're still limited to only low Earth orbit and only 500 tons per year of launch, even with the space shuttle. So that was the scope. And then we had a new president, George W. Bush. George W. Bush had a new vision. Instead of the shuttle, we will have the Constellation program. That means we had the RS-1 that will be able to launch people to orbit, and the RS-5, which was a heavy booster, perhaps even heavier than Saturn V, or more or less at the same range, and combine the two, and we can go back to the moon. And later, at some point, there was no time specific, go to Mars. So it was not like the moon program, the initial Apollo program that was a dedicated date before the end of the decade. But yeah, at some point in the future, when we have the budget, if we'll have the budget, we will go to the moon and then back to Mars. And it was a very expensive program that was just the RS-1 and RS-5 and the Orion space capsule, just to be able to launch it without even going to the moon and going to Mars, was expected to cost about $36 billion and over a span of 12 years. That's a very huge budget that will strain NASA limited and shrinking budget. But that was it. The vision for a Mars mission was built something on the style of Battlestar Galactica, based on in orbit around the moon, and then a huge spaceship that will carry all the propellant, the fuel, and the oxygen for taking all the people and everything that they need for the landing mission to Mars, and then return them to Earth. Of course, everything will have to come initially from Earth. The price tag was huge, something at around $500 million. The image here is from the spacecraft from the Martian, the Hermes. It was inspired by NASA's program during this time. And then we had an election, and instead of George W. Bush, who wanted to go back to the moon, we had Barack Obama. Obama saw the price tag. He decided immediately to, not immediately, but he decided to cancel the Constellation program. Instead of Constellation, we had the SLS, the Space Launch System, that was actually very similar to the SLS, but without the RS-5. That was only one spacecraft, slightly smaller, using some existing components, and there is no second spacecraft that carried humans, but the main one will also carry the humans, the Orion space capsule, and of course there will be no moon mission. Instead of the moon, we will go to Mars. So not to Mars. Instead of the moon, we will go to the asteroids. And later, at some point, there was no commitment and no exact date, we will go to Mars. The mission to a near-Earth asteroid didn't go so well. NASA did some planning, and they calculated what they have is not enough. So they decided to do, instead of going to an asteroid, more as if they are going to an asteroid, go to just to some place in space, and then come back and say, yeah, we kind of simulated as if we are going to an asteroid. It wasn't a very good plan, but there was something that Barack Obama did that was excellent to the space program and revolutionized space travel and perhaps revolutionize the future of humanity altogether. What he did is changing the way NASA was engaging this private sectors. Instead of going to a company like Boeing or Raytheon and give them a cost-plus project, we want you to build up something that is exactly like this. We'll pay whatever it costs, plus some profit for you. Instead, Obama involved other private companies, and NASA simply told them, look, we want a supply spacecraft to the International Space Station. Do whatever you want. We will pay you paid delivery. Why is it so amazing? Because this is what enabled SpaceX, back then a small company that only started in 2002, to survive. They got a contract to resupply the space station, and they also got a contract to send humans to the space station. And this infusion of a few $1 billion is what enables SpaceX to survive. And the next project that SpaceX is working on is a fully usable spacecraft. And it's if this one, the Starship, the next spacecraft, will become a reality, 100% reusable. That means humans we will no longer be able to confine ourselves to Earth. We can send humans to Mars and the asteroid, and we can, instead of sending 500 tons to space, humanity will be able to send millions or even tens of millions of tons. This is like a whole new game. So this is thanks to Obama. But then come 2016. Now we have Donald Trump. Donald Trump again changed the direction, NASA's direction. Forget the asteroid, we are going back to the moon. One good thing that Trump did is that this time he decided to give a dedicated goal. We want to be able to land on the moon by 2024. The decision was that if Trump will have a second term, it will happen before the end of his second term. So now NASA again have a goal, and it have a specific date, and it has a target, which is much, much better than, oh, let's invent a space station just so the space shuttle will not be canceled and we will have something. We have a specific goal. Maybe it's not the best goal, but at least it's a goal with a deadline. And so Trump still haven't canceled the SLS, the Space Launch System, which is extremely expensive when compared to others reusable, 100% reusable solution. Perhaps it will still have some goal or some purpose in the moon program. I'll link in the links below. I'll add an article from Quora that discussed this in further details. And now the moment we have all been waiting for, what is going to happen next. The presidential election hadn't occurred yet, so we only have prediction based on polls. The polls currently predict that Biden have a much better chance of winning when compared to Trump. So there is a chance that Trump will win, and if Trump will win, the 2024 goal and the going back to the moon program will continue, probably will continue as it's been set before. But we are going to assume that perhaps that Biden is going to win the next election, which is this is how the polls are predicting, and he has a better chance. So how the program is going to look like once Biden comes into office. One thing is certain, space policy will change. As with Clinton and Bush and Obama and Trump, every new president coming to office told NASA, change direction. This will happen again when Biden will come into office. We'll have a new plan. What the new plan will be, I'm not entirely sure. Nobody exactly know at this moment of time. But based on what I heard from participating in the Mars Society convention a couple of weeks ago, probably the moon program is going to be delayed, perhaps to 2028 instead of 2024. Maybe it will be some more focus on Mars. If SpaceX is successful with his Starship program, the fully reusable spaceship, this one will be a game changer, and perhaps then a combined mission between NASA and perhaps other partners and SpaceX to Mars will be approved for sometimes late in the late 2020s, 2026, 2029, something around there, perhaps in the early 2030s. I hope Biden will keep Jim Bernstein, the current NASA administrator, in place. He seemed to successfully navigate the political minefield, and he's doing a good job. I hope that won't change. And that's my prediction in case Biden, or in the hopes that Biden will win the upcoming elections. And thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you again for watching, and see you next week.